and welcome to the Friday edition of Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied Anne Squinty, disembodied Beard John, and, well, the rest of the world. Hi, Clavicus. Thanks so much for that resub, 44 months. Thank you so much. Thanks for sticking around. Awesome. Oh, I downgraded my caffeine level again this morning, Crowley. I'm so far opposite coffee now. I'm on green tea. So, we'll see how it all goes. I may end up completely uncaffeinated for a while. Still trying to tame my guts. It is what it is. Yeah, happy Friday. Glad it's the weekend. Even if David is going to, drag me off, Christmas shopping for his father. I have a lot going on this weekend. But I will still be streaming tomorrow on my stream at twitch.tv/paintingbig. We will be working on, we'll be working on whatever I feel like, really. I've got the Crystal Dragon, I've got Anubis base. I was going to do Anubis base, and then I got distracted by Clint, so probably we should finish Anubis. So that I can, get that I finished a model. Not counting the one that David painted half of, right? It's actually pretty, not terribly chilly in here this morning, so I think the flannel can go away. But yeah, so we'll probably do Anubis. We'll probably maybe we'll work on Owlbear a little bit. I don't know, whatever, I'll do whatever takes me. That way I can maybe start a new project. Or maybe we'll work on Wood Elf Girl. I don't know. I'm still thinking. It'll depend on tomorrow. But yeah, other than that, life's okay. I'm thinking of starting I think I'm going to start a new knitting project, Korniko. Because I got some really cool yarns when I went to the yarn store with Mom. And I'm dissatisfied with my original cowl. My original cowl is too long. I can wrap it 3 times around my neck, and then it's a really puffy, really, really thick coating. But I feel like I need a cowl that's I made it bigger. I should have made it a little bit smaller. So I need a slightly smaller cowl. So I'm thinking about doing that with very sexy yarn that I got. I should have brought my yarn in to show you. It is terribly sexy. I think it's got some cashmere and alpaca in it, and it's a blend. Both of the ones I bought are blends, but they're very nice. One of them was very, very expensive. So it needs to be something I'll use a lot. And I love my cowl because cowls are so cool because they don't, unlike scarves, they don't have ends to tuck in, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, I need a shorter one. I went a little bit overboard on the teal one. Alrighty. So, for a loose, just kind of a loose drape, the teal cowl is great. So if I'm cold during the day, I'm wearing a V-neck or something, I can put that on. But, out at night for walking, I want something that's just a little closer and also just a little softer. Alright. Let us... You know what? The first thing I'm going to do is do what I should have done ages ago. And grab the fire red. Oh, that's clear red. We do not want clear red. Grab the fire red and get his little beard ties colored in. Yeah, I'm going to try knitting with 2 strands, Korniko. I decided that that's within my attention and comfort zone. So I got some super, I got some Rowan stuff that's super thin and frizzy purple. And then it's the same purple that's in the variegated yarn the nice yarn I got. So I'm going to try that and do a swatch and see if I like the effect of it. I got a lot of purple. I realized that my previous yarns had been lacking in purple, which was astonishing considering my proclivity for it. I mostly had gotten blue grays and then just weird other colors. So I decided there had to be a purple gap closing yarn buying spree. So that is what I accomplished. All right. Also, sadly, the Switch is probably not going to arrive till after Christmas. But that's kind of cool because we wouldn't be able to play with it while David's parents were here anyway. It'll probably arrive the day after they leave. It may even arrive right before the following weekend. We'll see. But yeah, I should have figured, even though I ordered it 10 days before the holiday, or 12 days before the holiday. Rowan is what, Rowan Bulky was what my ugly scarf was knitted from. Alright, so let's get this red in here. Just need a little bit of it. A little bit of red. Might be handy for touch-ups later. or for building a purple. So I'm going to just put a little water in it, and then we'll mix that up and apply it to his little beard ties. But yeah, I like rowing yarn. I'll try to remember to drag my yarn over. Except sometimes you aren't here on Friday, so I think I'm, like, subliminally, I was like, oh, Kuro might not be here. Yeah, I got lots of nice yarn. And I'm kind of in the knitting mood again. Like actually wearing my cowl is given me like a sudden like resurgence of interest in making more things. Long socks are not bad. You can always scrunch them up. All right. So we've got our fire red, and because we've got the white on these beard ties, it's going to let our fire red look bright, even though it's a very tiny area. That's going to give us a nice bright red. When you're doing this sort of thing, you could also use acrylic inks like De La Rowney. They have some very saturated colors, and this trick will work because they are semi-translucent. They're not completely opaque. And then they're very intense. So you do, if you need a very, very bright, small pop of color, like Monster Eyes or something, you could also use those acrylic inks. David uses them for mixing a lot. He uses, pretty much when David paints, he uses, like, he's always mixing regular paint and ink. Like, he always has those inks, like, nearby. He uses them a ton. I would say that like, any David project is maybe, like, 70% paint and 30% ink. Given that acrylic ink is kind of paint anyway, but you know what I mean. Oh, you had an interview. Nice. Yeah, even my mom hadn't knitted socks, but she's about to start. Twisted Oma. I told her there was a lady on my stream who is doing socks for the first time. All right. Oh, we forgot. Yeah, I forgot to highlight those. That's okay. There's a lot of gold that still needs to be hit on various places, but that's all right. We're doing red. We're doing red today. I need to do the red down here too, so we might use that fire red to play with that later. So we've got that. What else do I? Yeah, why don't I just do that? So if I want to give a little bit of texture down here, I'm going to need to underpaint. So we'll make a pink. Don't need to take it all the way to white for your underpainting. If you're underpainting for a specific color that you know and it's a single specific color, you could just use a lighter version of that color to do your underpainting. It won't be as stark and stand out as much as using pure white, but sometimes you want that. Sometimes you want a subtle more subtle effect. So I'm going to make a pink. Red is high diffusion in white, so it's very easy. Red is fairly high diffusion all over. By high diffusion, I mean the pigment diffuses through other pigments quickly. You can tell that when you mix red into yellow and see how the red overwhelms that color. Black is also pretty high diffusion. A tiny touch of black will make a notable difference in a color, even a big batch. So if we want to create like if you just want straight up highlighting, you can just like do the tops of these straps, but if you want a little bit of texture, you use a tiny stippling stroke. And if you want a really worn texture, you do more lines to suggest that the leather is cracking. So let's just do a little bit of this. And this does take fine control. It takes a very good brush. You want obviously very thin paint. You can see that I'm doing tiny little dots. It's cool though, like if you just grab a model you don't like very much but that has straps or belts on it, it's easy to practice this, and once you get the hang of it, it's really it's only by practicing that you get this level of fine motor. Like you have to try to do it, or if you always get scared of it and veer away from it, you're never going to be able to do it. And the nice thing is that when you're trying to do this super tiny stuff, I'm going to thin down my red just a tiny bit, I think, just a tiny bit of water. But I mean, when you're trying to do this stuff, that's going to make all the rest of your fine detail easier. So when you're doing these tiny, tiny little dots, that's going to make it easier for you to do rivets and buckles and all the other fine detail stuff. Just by practicing your fine motor. Remember to keep your hands relaxed when you do it. Don't tense up. It'll just counter the muscle memory you're trying to put in. So once I paint red over that, we can still see the underlying detail. It still like gives us enough of a highlight. Yep, and you're going to have to vary that opacity. Like, you're going to have to vary the amount of water with every different color, right? That's the thing. No matter what paint line you use, no matter how uniform they try to make it, different pigments will act different ways. And different pigments will have different opacities, which means you're going to have to thin them to different levels, which is why I always try to teach you guys to kind of look at the paint and how it falls off the palette or how it looks when you drag it over your thumb or whatever you're going to use. A lot of wet palette users will use their thumb or their finger or whatever, their nails, to test paint if they don't have the well like I do. But this is why I'm trying to teach you guys, I'm trying to teach you to fish, not hand you a fish. Because if I teach you how the paint should look, then you'll be able to do this with any color from any line. For underpainting, honestly, I prefer Reaper White at 2:1. But it depends. If I want it a little bit more soft, then I'll thin it a little bit more than that. You'll see that a lot if you watch the stream a lot. Big Chimpo is like, I'm always doing white to 2:1. And that's what I've done here. I've used 2 drops of white, a brush full of thin dread, and then a drop of water. So my pink here is also roughly 2:1. Yeah, textures are nice because, like, you don't have to have perfect layering. The point is to leave a texture. The point is to leave brush strokes. So, okay, the back of the model is darker here, so I want to maybe blend those in a little bit more. I can see where it's getting dark toward the interior of the leg there, so. But yeah, that's the nice thing about textures is often you just have to suggest a little bit, and it already looks better, and you didn't have to do a perfect blend. So it's a natural extension of layering that you don't have to try as hard with. Which is why I think a lot of people reach for it. It's also much faster. Because to get really good layering, if you're trying to do smooth blending, you're going to be doing a lot of layering and glazing usually. Or if you're me, wet blending, layering, glazing. And whereas doing textures, because you can have it a bit rougher and still get great effects, textures are faster. So a lot of your fast painters are going to use texture. And bot, I can't really speak to that anyway, because I don't watch a lot of other art Twitch streams. When I'm relaxing, I tend to actually watch more gaming streams. So I can't even speak to it. All right, little bit of brush strokes there to bring out that cross there. Yes, and actually I talk about that a lot on the Patreon stuff. We were just talking about, okay, so here's the deal. And actually I've written a couple of PDFs on this, but I'll just summarize real quick for you, Big Chimpo. But you already have realized it, but I'm going to summarize it for everybody else. So, we were talking about, this is the base coat, right? When you add shadows, you are adding mass. You're defining, you're giving areas weight, and you are adding definition. With your weight, right? You're telling where the shadow cutoff are, all that kind of thing. You're adding mass to it. From here to here, that was almost all shadow, except for the light around the eyes. Highlights are where you start to see texture. So when you're giving the eye of the viewer information, your shadows are going to define shapes and weight, and whether the material is translucent or not. And your highlights are going to tell you what sort of surface it is, whether it's slick or textured, and what kind of texture that is. That's why you've got that highlights defining texture thing. It's natural. It's exactly what happens in real life. You don't see texture in the shadows, but shadows need to be there to tell you what sort of object, what shape of object you're looking at. Your highlights don't usually tell you, they tell you a little bit about the shape of the object, and that if it's a round object, you should have a round highlight. But your shadows are already giving that information. They're also telling you how much is being blocked by the light. So there's a summary. We just demonstrated that yesterday, very much so, by starting with something like this and then ending with something like this. It was a good model to show that on because of the fur texture and everything being the same color. Yes. Shadows define mass. They define weightiness. It's why you can draw a light pole, but until you add the shadow, you haven't given like information. It looks weightless. It looks floating when you draw without a shadow. The minute you add shadows is the minute your object takes on weight. There was a whole lesson in my comic book inking book about that. Which also brings up, read art books. They will teach you things that, like, they're teaching for 2D, but the same thing applies, the same kind of principle applies in what we do. The only survivor. Yes, I survived! Good. Excellent. That's what I love to hear. Because, yeah, I put a lot of effort into it, obviously. Alright, just a little bit more highlighting here. I want to bring out the crossover here, but I can't do it too much because I've got this overhang of fur. Oh, that's right, we were going to do fur. Let's do fur after I do this red, after I bring this red out. But yeah. I want to do some more monster painting stuff, I think, which will appeal to you, Kuro. The dragon stuff I think I still want to do as a separate class for sale, although I guess I could do both. I guess if you're a patron, you've been supporting me all this time. It depends. I'll probably do a pretty involved dragon thing for I'm going to do essentially class you can do on Patreon now, where you can put up a video and make that for sale to everybody, not just people on your Patreon. Like, it's a separate cost. And at first I was kind of like disappointed because you can't do like classes like you could do like on any of the class like website kind of things. But at the same time, you also don't need to be like, you don't need to paywall the whole thing. So I thought about it, and I realized what this would let me do is to do individual videos that covered individual parts of the dragon and just charge less for each one. So if you bought them all, then you'd have the entire thing. But if you don't have to, like if you only need help with wings or you only need help with eyes, then you would just buy those videos, right? Inara. Oh boy. Oh boy. So funny. Alrighty, we've got that going on. Now, I do notice that one thing I've got here is I've got a little bit of lack of vibrancy on part of this, so I'm going to actually glaze with my brighter red through here. I took it down originally because I was worried about muted colors contrasting, but I decided to go more into my bright red as an accent color because at this point it's not taking over. It's okay. I think there's enough to work. There we go. So I want to bring that up at least to the level that I've got this other red. If I don't like it, if I feel like it's overwhelming, I can come back to it. I could glaze with purple, I could do whatever, but for now I'm okay with that. Now let's do the texture on the other ankle wraps. Hey, Roger. Oh. That sounded Texas, that I skinned that there snake after I killed it. Or maybe like southern, just general south. Alright, so let's take our pink and I think I'm going to thin it just a little bit more. Also, it's a little drier here today, so I'm sure my paint is drying a little faster because I didn't make really big puddles here in my palette. Oh my, the accents are getting overdone. Now you guys know why they tell writers not to write in accent. Unless it's like very specifically for a reason. It's really annoying to read. So after I thin my paint, I can get even finer on these textures, which is yeah. Well, the problem is it is annoying to read. Like, it really is. It's much easier. The way you want to portray an accent as a writer is usually to change the word order around a bit to reflect it, or the colloquialisms, but you don't want to spell it phonetically like that because that just makes people read slower. It throws the brain a loop and it throws your reader out of the story. One word, maybe, like one idiomatic word like dagon or whatever, dagum, is like better than trying to actually spell the way the words sound. Alright, so got a little bit of highlight here. Yeah, I know it's hard not to overdo things. I'm with you. I probably overdid way too much when I was recovering from my stuff. So there's pluses and minuses to getting finer with your texture. It's one, yay, I got finer with my texture. Now it's going to be, maybe it's going to say that it's not as worn of a leather, which is what I originally wanted. But it also means that it's just less bold in general. It's more likely not to get noticed. So if you like to kind of do Easter eggs on your model, like with me, sometimes I really like that the model itself looks good, but the closer you get, the more stuff you notice. I really like to do that kind of effect. It's fun for me. I like doing subtle textures that you only pick up after you've been looking at the model a little bit. It's rewarding for me. But that's part of my painting style, right? A lot of people consider that a waste of time. They'd much rather smack you in the face with it right away. They're like, 3/4 of the people aren't even going to notice that, right? And that's fine. I'm painting for me and for that 25% of people who are going to notice it, so. Yeah, I mean, Stephen King's a pro, let's face it. Like, as far as, notable American writers, yeah, he knows it's better to use the lingo and, like certain phrases and certain transitions, like swapping two words, to show more of a, and that's like, it still gives you the feeling of more a foreign culture, but not disruptive to the reader. Alright, so just going to bring up the highlights a bit on the outside of the leg, which is where you're going to see more texture. I really want this to be a little stronger. Now, the downside of having finer texture, too, is when I'm not using white, I'm just not going to get that bright pop of color by glazing the red over the top. So if I really want this area to come up a little bit more intense in color and more saturated, then I need to do a little bit heavier on that. Everybody, Zachariah, every writer has words they use more than any other. And it's part of their style. Just like when you're a painter and you have certain colors or textures that you use more than any other, it's part of your style. And as a writer, we can go against that and break it up. And I'm betting that Stephen King does break it up. I'm betting there's even more muling, even more muling in his unedited work. And then he breaks it up. But like I definitely have words that I overuse that I try to, when I read through, I try to break and find a synonym that will work. Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little bit of that texture in there so it's a little more interesting. Especially with these little guys, let's face it, you get up close to these guys, 28 millimeters, like, you really do get up close to look at all the details, which makes it more likely that you're going to notice textures when they're used well. I'm mixing up some brown liner because I need to like go over the wraps on this handle before we paint that. Yeah, when I was a teenager, Stephen King was probably my favorite writer. I always had a Stephen King book by my side in high school. I always was carrying one around. I like his son's work in comic books too, Joe Hill. Wrote Lock and Key, which is now a series on Netflix. I actually feel like Joe Hill like kind of approaches the boundary of being kind of a fusion of Stephen King and Neil Gaiman. He's got that mysticism in his work that Gaiman channels with legends and folklore and everything like that. He's got that feel of it, an ancient magic. But then he's got Stephen King's grasp of horror and suspense as well. Yeah, I read Firestarter first too. Actually, no, I'll lie. The Shining. I read The Shining first. And I read Firestarter second. My dad had hardcovers of both of those. Yeah, read Lock and Key, Big Chimpo. If you like graphic novels, pick up Lock and Key. Can endorse. He's a good writer. Oh, funny, Zachariah. Sure. I'm just trying to get a little bit of shadow. There's a lot of little like wrap things on this axe. Like they might be edges, but they really read more like strings or something. So I'm just trying to put some delineation in there so that I can highlight. Yeah, that's the problem with like when people license Stephen King stuff is it's a hard genre to do well, horror. And although there are some good horror writers like trying to make the genre resurge these days, especially horror thriller, I feel like Hollywood has yet to catch up. I feel like I mean, because horror is difficult to do if you're not just doing splatter gore, right? Psychological horror is hard to do. Yeah, seriously, I think you'll enjoy it, Big Chimpo. I hope you do. Apologies in advance if it's not your thing, but I really, really enjoyed it. Alrighty. So just a little bit of underpainting to get those little wrap things kind of to stand out. I don't think I want to go with a different color for them, because I still can't tell if they're just edges of, if it's the way that Bobby decided to do the edges of the leather here. So I'm just going to hit them with a highlight and go for it. Yeah, Mist was really good. There's always those standouts, right? Like most of the stuff they've made from Stephen King's work has been meh, but every once in a while. Alright, there we go. Just relined, and now I'm going to hit those little straps. Yeah, horror is too creepy for me most of the time these days, but I feel that because I don't enjoy a lot of violence, right? And suspense is hard for me to handle. I like happy things. But I used to watch horror as a kid, just because it was really big in the 80s. I would get, there would just be a horror movie on. Nightmare on Elm Street would be on, or, all sorts of those other movies that came out around that time. These days I know the genre really isn't for me, so I stay away a little bit. But so we're going to highlight. We're going to take our pink and not underpaint, but we're going to highlight a little bit. Just on the edges of these. Yeah, I just feel like I said, I feel like Hollywood does not understand horror as much. Like, you'll get a producer. Was it Ron Howard who did the original Aliens? Or Alien? You'll get a producer every once in a while who gets it. Right, yeah. That's why these days, actually, I prefer his fantasy to his horror. Stephen King's fantasy to horror. Even though there's still lots of dark elements in his fantasy. And that's actually why I prefer to keep things happy in my media, because there's enough bad stuff in the world that I don't need to throw more bad stuff at my psyche. My psyche has enough bad stuff. Oh, Ridley Scott. Yeah, so Ridley Scott understood horror, right? He got it. And he was able to make that movie really scary. Ah, got it. Yeah. I experienced the D&D based paranoia directly, Sean Allen. I've talked about it before, where my neighbor's older brother came over and told me he was going to burn my books while we were playing D&D. And when a 16-year-old does that to you and you're 12, it makes an impact. I pretty much went in tears to my parents, who got very upset. But my parents looked through the D&D books and didn't buy the whole satanic crap. It was all, I loved it for monsters and mythology. And they understood that. They got it. They didn't buy into that stuff. It was definitely a thing. It was pretty awful, like, more than meanie. Like, because books were, like, everything to me, Kuroniko. It was like you threatened part of my life. Like, it wouldn't have stuck in my head if I hadn't been, like, really, really hit hard by it, right, after all these years. But that really, anytime somebody mentions that, I'm like, I was in rural Wisconsin and I grew up with that crap. That was my experience. I remember, like, the TV, like, specials and the articles in the paper and all that crap. Alright, so I left this a little bit understated, darker, purpler. I think I just want a little bit of red on the upside here. More red than I put on it. I don't mind that this switches to a purple coolness because it's definitely away from the light. But I think I want... Yeah, I want a little bit of the pink texture up here on these straps for sure. Oh, that's even worse. D&D books grabbed and then burned at a church. That's like double bad. Because that's adults. That's an escalation above your teenage. Yeah. But yeah, that's it's just nasty. It was just nasty. It was not a nice time where I grew up. In general, where I grew up was actually a very nice place to grow up, I should say. But when it came to that particular cultural phenomenon, these are really thin straps, guys, so I'm doing really gentle touches of light, and I'm not going to glaze over them. I'm just going to leave them. Yeah, Roger, for sure. Yeah. That's nice, Agent Marvel. Yeah, the parents who actually looked at the game and, like, understood what it was about, like just kind of looked into it, understood that it was all just pretend, and it was, like, heroes and monsters and mythology, you know, it wasn't devil worship. Like, it was just people who took it on the snap judgment that didn't get that. Or whose culture embraced that, but, you know, it is what it is. Happily, we're past that point, guys. Let's just be happy. Be happy we have D&D now an ascendant power in the universe. Taking over the mainstream. One monster felled at a time. So just a little bit of extra edgy highlighting. Yeah, that's too bad, Kroniko. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to hold up that censorship when the internet is out there now. You can find a lot of things online. Oh, did Wizards or Hasbro lay off a bunch of D&D peeps? Did I miss that? I don't keep up with the news unless it bashes me in the head, really. Was talking to David about that last night. I'm a much happier person when I don't read the news. Hasbro did, yeah. Oh, oh wow, 1,100 people. Wow. Maybe they shouldn't have done that stuff with the OGL. Oops, was that my outside voice? Because otherwise, as far as mainstream media, D&D's, like, RPGs are doing well. Last I heard. I don't know. I assume that Reaper's still doing well. People are still buying miniatures. There we go. So we've got that little, all those edges help us say that this is very worn. Oh, thanks, Crowley. Yeah, I wondered about that because it's like, but then if WotC laid off a bunch of employees, then yeah, it didn't stop layoffs from those teams, right? That's what I assumed. Though I suppose if the company starts doing worse, they got to lay off people from everywhere. It is possible they had very bloated personnel in that department. Yeah, 5e has been the best selling. Those things should not. Those things are not actually related, Sir Gambit. I don't think it may have been. I would say that's correlation without causation, because having worked in a game store and then worked pretty much at Reaper, watching the game store and sales and talking to Bill, like D&D and Magic, unless you've got that player crossover, but it doesn't. The people who play Magic really passionately, like, often might play D&D, but a lot of them don't, right? Yes, yeah. See, that's what I would think, is that they took a hit when the subscription thing, when the D&D OGL stuff came out with the license. Yes. Yeah, I mean, big companies do this, right? So, yeah, they used to do it regularly. Big companies, yeah, they hire up and then they drop stuff down. Right. Now, it could be that, like many companies during the pandemic, they scaled up, right? Because a lot of people were forced to sit in and do things at home. Interesting. So a lot of people just dumping Hasbro's stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's still like a personal, it's still like, it would be interesting to see how much that there really is. It's usually a very small percentage of people, much as we all would have friends who would do that. It's usually quite a small but vocal percentage of people who actually do stop using a company. Although that's not, I mean, I personally have stopped paying for Blizzard games. Like, I canceled, after the stuff about Blizzard came out, I canceled my WoW membership, and I still haven't re-upped it. And I probably won't. Unless they can prove that they've turned it around. Whereas before I was quite happy to get Blizzard money because I liked the games they put out. So, stop buying Hasbro. Interesting. So maybe it's bigger than that. Maybe maybe it's because gamers are just such a united, like, gang that, and we just are not gonna essentially, we're not gonna deal for that. We're not gonna stand for that kind of thing. That's interesting. If our culture really that widespreadly, like, made an impact on Hasbro's bottom line, that's a very interesting thing. I mean, it is kind of why it is a phenomenon, right? That big companies have had to watch more of their public personas, right? Because the internet makes it easy for big communities to just say, we do not believe in you anymore. I don't know what the Pinkertons thing is because I don't read the news. But I'll look it up afterwards. We don't need to dive into the depths of human ridiculousness. So I'm just doing a quick red glaze over the bottom of this just because I want to warm it up just a little bit more. But yeah, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. Because usually people talk about it, but then they don't actually step away from something they love. But if the reaction to this was actually strong enough, it's probably a combo. Like, as Crowley points out, companies do this sort of thing. And a lot of companies scaled up a lot during the pandemic and then had to drop personnel after when anticipated escalation didn't continue. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I kind of hope that somebody, like, writes a book about this or an article about this, somebody with the actual information about how much that whole everything has cost Hasbro. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's nice about publicly traded companies. Everybody's got access to the earnings reports, right? Yeah, well, Good for us, then. Good for gamers taking a stand. I just haven't been role-playing, and I don't play Magic anymore, so it was like a non-thing for me. I already wasn't spending money on the company. The thing Hasbro needs to realize is that there are lots of other board game companies out there now, and a lot of them are producing better games. As good or better games than Hasbro has in its stable, so... There are choices. There are choices about games you play. I'm going to go and grab my liner and do some a little bit more lining around the handle here with this stuff. I feel like I need more shading. Oh, Hasbro lost their big box book distributor. Oh, interesting. Well, the book, okay, so publishing is as always, kind of in a crisis mode these days, I think. Publishing, the world of traditional publishing has been in WTF mode ever since the Kindle hit and things started to get disrupted. All right, let's grab our purple and get these the purple bits highlighted here. We were using Stix purple, which hopefully I have, yes, right here. They're probably just trying to survive, period, Agent Marvel. Oh, yeah. It's, honestly, yeah. I wouldn't be too worried. I think that part of it, too, is probably the whole, inflation makes you cut back on discretionary spending, right? So, when people have less money to spend, then they're just not going to buy as many games. They're not going to spend as much as they used to, right? So I think that's just kind of I think the economic reality is probably affecting it a little bit. I wouldn't worry too much about Steamforged. They've been around for a while. I wish I had Ed. Honestly, if I had Ed around, I could ask Ed, and Ed would know exactly what was going on. Or if he didn't know, he'd run off and find out. That's right. I miss Ed for the gossip, damn it. I miss Ed for the gossip. Our gossip sessions were awesome. That man had such a grasp on the gaming universe. He's so good. He followed everything. He followed everything and chased it down, and he has so much knowledge of how people in the industry interacted, and sometimes he knew them personally, so he could even speak to that. Ed was so good at that. He was so good at that. Yeah, people are still trying to recover, right? Even when the economy gets better, there's still that pause, right, where you still are now you're recovering, right? For it takes you time to recover along with it, right? Yeah. Yeah, there were just a lot of layoffs and a lot of stuff. Right. Yeah, and that is a very good point too, Crowley. A lot of people playing the games are going to be paying off student loans that now they have to worry about factoring into their spending again. Yeah. So there's all sorts of... It's got to be a bunch of different stuff, right, guys? Yeah, those people who bought new houses, us. We... Fixing the leak. Yeah, David grumbled about that. He's like, I just want to just call up my landlord and have them fix it. I'm like, you say that until you look at your equity that you're building. He's like, oh, I guess. So I'm mixing my pink with my Stix purple. It's making kind of a cool lavender, and I'm using that. I'm going to use that to highlight. So it makes it a little redder and a little paler. It's a nice lavender color. Stix has some black in it, so it's a little bit muted, but I like it. It's a Shadow Raven. Poof. Oh, leak number 3. Oof. Yeah. Oh no, Crowley. Yeah, house repairs are for reals. But in return, you get a house, which I am very much a fan of. Yeah, I hope something comes through for you too, Kuro. Quick DIY, yeah, DIY work. Yeah, that happens. That happens. Focus on the positive and just get through the negative as much as you can. You still have a house. Not everybody has a house. But I am ye who tries to focus on the positive a lot, so I'll be your positivity cheerleader for the day. Mostly I'm trying to like counterbalance the actual human psyche, since we all like to, complain about stuff. And we all focus on the negative because that's the way our brains are set up. I have a very high positivity rating, so if I get too annoying, you'll just leave me in the dust. So I'm trying to get the edges of these straps. You can see how that kind of brings them out. You need somewhere to keep your minis. Yes, exactly. Meeting time. Yes, happy Friday, Crowley. Have a good weekend, okay? We'll see you next week. Right. And, if you have the energy, learning to fix some of that stuff is more doable. Some of it's more doable than you think. That's why I'm always shocked to find out how handy David is. Like, because you don't expect your geeky husband who, like, paints miniatures and plays video games, like, to suddenly turn around and, like, be able to fix crap. But David does. Like, he's pretty impressive. Like, he interrogated the electrician we had to come and fix one of our light switches, and now he can do it himself. Because the electrician was really nice, and he's like, yeah, this is definitely something you can do yourself. Here, let me teach you how. It's pretty cool. So there are definitely things you can learn to do. And then there are the big jobs that you just want to outsource because it's too much of a pain in the butt. Yeah, just a discouraging topic for your hubby. I'm sorry, Agent Marvel. Give him a big hug and tell him how much you love him and that you're so happy to be with somebody who can do those fixes. Flip it to positive. Yes, Butts, it does. But it's still an eternal surprise for me because David is just, like, he lives in, for a man who has lived in apartments because he prefers not to do that stuff, the fact that he can turn around and do it when necessary always just is an eternal surprise for me. It's a pleasant surprise. He's very much a MacGyver type of fixer. But makes me happy. I'm the kind of person who is just like, let's just call the whoever to fix the whatever. And he's just like, nope. And then he goes and fixes it. I'm like, I did not know I was marrying this, but I'm quite pleased. That kind of a... Oh, yeah, the property tax bill. Yep, Heartstoppers. Yep. Handled. Yeah, Sir Gambit. Yep. Oh, yeah, if you grew up with it. Yeah, makes sense. Yes, David the Handyman Nerd, exactly. Yeah, I think we got ours knocked down a bit, too, in our... Yeah, never overlook the whole talent challenging your tax bill Gambit. That was not for Sir Gambit, but for Twisted Oma. Sometimes, it works. It seems to work quite a bit, which makes me really raise my eyebrows at cities and states Because if so many people are challenging their bills, and it works every time, though sometimes it doesn't. It just depends. But yeah, maybe try that Twistedoma. Maybe look into challenging it if you haven't already. Maybe you already have. Yeah, it is a pain in the butt, but David was looking into it this time, but he decided that we wouldn't benefit enough to make it worth the pain. So there are times when it's like that, where if it isn't something that he can fix, he just one of the for it, and I'll take over and do the contacting and the email writing and the phone calling. We balance pretty well that way. All right, so there we go. We've got that. Purple is highlighted a little bit. I can bring it up a little bit more. We're keeping our shadow underneath, so that looks good. I need a little bit more light on top, though. You can see how uniform this is. Though I've edge highlighted the leather, it's really not highlighted on the top of it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if there was something you had before that you didn't have this time, that explains why it might have changed. Take advantage of everything you can. For sure. Part of what I'm going to do is shade a little bit more with my sticks purple. Because a lot of this light here that's showing through is still the white primer Zenith, because I wasn't putting real heavy paint on it. So creating more of a transition on the mid is going to help me with the highlight. Yeah. Yeah, Texas has a lot of advantages for homeowners. As well as, like, no state income tax. Which was really nice when I lived there. Making a lighter purple now, I'm going to actually add a tiny bit of white to it. I was mixing in my pink, but there's only so light I can go by mixing in the pink. So I'm going to add just a tiny touch of white because I don't want to desaturate it too much. Ah, so you own the building but not the land. Yeah, it can be hard. Hey, every state has its issues, Shadow Raven. Let's be fair. Every state's got issues. They're just different issues. States are just like giant people conglomerations that are buried under red tape. I don't know, what's the most well-balanced state? Like, if you had to pick a state that, if it was a person, would be like the chillest, maybe Vermont. I don't know, though. Maybe Vermont has issues I don't know about. If you personify all the states. Trying to think of other states where I just think of the state and I'm like, okay, yeah, chill, groovin', awesome. Yeah, every state has upsides, every state has issues. Otherwise nobody would live there, right? If it didn't have its upside. Yeah. I mean, I lived in Texas for a lot of years, and there are definitely things I miss. So we're just popping a little bit of a highlight more on top of this, just to bring up And that looks a little bit better. Yeah, this is true. Lots of corn and pork. Wisconsin had a lot of cheese. Lots of cheese. And where I've kind of failed to keep some of my lining, I'm going to just grab my liner and sketch it in a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, I have a friend who moved from, like, she was in California, then she moved to Arizona for a number of years, and then she moved to join her daughter out in Maine, and that's a big culture jump, but Maine appears to suit her better than any of her previous states. She has a house on a lake up there. I keep being very tempted to visit her. I haven't seen her for ages. It's one of my dog friends. She had Leo's half-brother. There we go. All right, that's better. Yeah, she seems to really like it. When she first moved out there, it was to join... Her best friend had retired out there. And she ended up actually going and flying back to California for work every... I think every 4 to 6 weeks she would do a 4 to 6 week stint in Cali, because she's a nurse, and there was work out there that, like, I forget what specialty she's got, but pretty much in demand. She could choose her own hours and choose her pay as long as she did at least 4 to 6 weeks, and so she pretty much contracted and did the flight just because she was like, I retired early, but I want more money than this. There are a lot of monsters in Maine, aren't there? Thanks, Stephen King. Hey, we've gone full circle. Yes! All the best paint clubs went full circle. We're back to Stephen King. There we go. If we could have a vacation home anywhere in the world, where would it be? Hawaii. Specifically Oahu. I want a house close to Honolulu so that I can just go down. It would be nice to see the ocean, too. See, I used to think seasons mattered to me. But then I remembered Wisconsin. And I was like, if I never have winter again, I would rather just be able to, like, okay, well, let's go skiing and we can experience winter for a week. And then let's, like, not. You have to stay out of dairy and you'll be fine, right? So I'm doing a little bit of highlighting here. And notice how we lose, like, the reddish tone. We wash out our color when we highlight a little bit. So if you want that back, you've got to glaze. But I'm going to bring in the highlights here first. Because there are, like, little ridges in this armor. Ooh, nice, Germany. Yep. Yeah, David already knows if something happens to him, I'm buying a house in Hawaii. I'm going to move there permanently. At least unless the oceans rise up to swallow it. But until then, I'll be happy. There we go. So just a little bit there. I don't want a lot of, like, overblown texture. And this is how you make things look different, right? Is reaching for some texture on some things and not texturing others, but just going real subtle. I fell in love the first time I went to Honolulu, seriously. I fell absolutely in love with Oahu. There's just something about it. It's like this is my, like, this feels home. When we had our vacation there earlier this year, I was just so happy every day. I love that you can go to the North Shore and be like real kind of rural laid back with the amazing waves. You can go to the east side and you get all those beautiful cliffs and just amazing vistas and snorkeling and, you know, cool stuff like that. You go down to Honolulu and you have a metropolis with all the best restaurants you would want. You know, so if you want a night like eating amazing food and hanging out on like the boardwalk or watching the sunset over the ocean or whatever, and then you've got the west side, which is so chill and like all the like the surf just disappears and it's all these long beaches and the whole island feels less populated than it actually is. I can't. And then the weather, you can't beat the weather. Like that's why Hawaii. That's why Oahu specifically. I fell utterly in love with it, and it has everything I would want. And I love the humidity. Actually, is better for me than dry air for my skin and my hair. And then you've got that whole Mahalo vibe where it's just Hawaii, so it's just all kind of laid back, and I really love that. I really love that. That's why Hawaii, specifically Oahu. Sometimes you just go someplace in your life and you just are like, wow, this thing right here. I love it, you know? And there's so much art and culture, so it's like endlessly inspiring to me. All the colors and textures and there's just so much cool stuff. And then all the other islands are a hop away. So you get to, if you really want to go see like something new and different, like go over to the Big Island, which has a lot of different terrain. But yeah, really, really, really love it. Alrighty, so we got that. Where else am I missing? I don't want a lot of texture going under here because it's dark. You can see that I'm keeping the shadow here. So having this kind of fade out as it goes under there is good. I think I want a little bit of, I want to accentuate this a little bit more, and then I want to glaze over it with the original. What about the volcanoes? You don't have to live near one. Oahu actually doesn't have any active ones right now. I don't know that the Big Island has the active one that is regularly going off. And I guess the volcanoes are the downside, but I mean, here in California, you get wildfires. But as far as the volcano goes, it's not a deal breaker for me. Like, especially not after you've lived in North Texas, where tornadoes are always a threat. And tornadoes are also a threat in, you know, Wisconsin, where I grew up. And then you've got, you know, earthquakes here in California. A lot of the volcanoes in Hawaii are like dormant or like nearly so. But I don't think Oahu, maybe it does. I don't think so, though. I don't think any of Oahu, does Oahu, where are the active volcanoes in Hawaii? All right. Maui has one active volcano, and by active they mean it has erupted at least 10 times over the last 1,000 years. Yeah, Hawaii, the Big Island, Kilauea and Mauna Loa are on the Big Island. Yeah, I mean, landmark volcanoes, Oahu is listed Liahi, which is Diamond Head. But Diamond Head has been, like, dormant for forever. Like, it's pretty much, like, gone. Oh, I think we're okay. I mean, there's new volcanic activity off of the coast, and the Big Island is of course, as mentioned, pretty active. But I don't know. I mean, volcanoes aren't as terrifying to me because I wouldn't, even if I were on Oahu, I wouldn't be living like close enough to one to make it like super dangerous. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive about volcanoes. We went to see when it started. Was it Mauna Loa that started re-erupting when we were there? When we were at the Big Island, was the second to last day before we left, was the day that volcano woke up. And I got to go and listen to it rumble. We just took the hike out on the rim to listen to it grumble from deep in the earth. It was quite impressive. Now I'm going to glaze over this with some sticks. I just want to keep my texture, but I want to get a little bit more vibrant out of it. There we go. There, now that brings back our color. This is a very colorful barbarian, and I don't regret it, guys. Well, there hasn't erupted in ages, and there's, like, dead. Like, Diamond Head is just so old that, I mean, its crater is not even a crater anymore. Like, it's just flat, like, parkland. I don't know if there's a risk. Let's see. Could Diamond Head erupt? Despite its relative youth, scientists do not believe that Diamond Head is capable of erupting again in the future. The underground magma vents feeding Diamond Head's previous eruptions appear to have gone extinct, which means that Diamond Head should now be classified as an extinct volcano. Yep, that was my thought. That was my understanding. So now it's just pretty. Yep. I remember you were thinking about, like, trying out a new place, Twistoma. If you like rain, alcohol, and seasonal depression. Oh, man. Well, I can't drink anymore, and I've worked hard to get over my seasonal depression by moving to sunny places. So that leaves rain. I really like rain, but Hawaii has rain. I'll take the volcanoes, guys. Tornadoes are scarier to me. Tornadoes are super scary. Because tornadoes move around. Volcano, you know where it is, right? It's there. And maybe a new one grows up and it's a little bit over here. But, you know, it's mostly here. The only unpredictable part is which side blows, right? Which way it blows. Right. I think that's what it is, actually, when I think about it. Oh, hold on, I want to get, I need black, and I want to use a bluish color. So let's mix our shark bite with our brown liner, and then put a little bit of red in it. But yeah, I think that's why I don't find the volcanoes as scary. I know where the volcanoes are. They are not gonna, you know, race across the landscape to rip the top off my house. Whereas tornadoes are really unpredictable. I think that's the difference for me. Okay, so I'm going to mix brown liner and shark bite. It's going to probably give us a bit of a green color. And what I'll do is I'll mix it, and then I'm going to add, where's the base? There. Gotta grab a base to help keep this color in frame. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'd take volcanoes. Alright, so we've got kind of a bluey color here. This might actually work. Might actually work as a highlight for our fur. It's not too blue. It is a little greenish. I'm going to add a little touch of white. Remember that trick? Where you add a tiny touch of white and you can see the color better. We need to mix a highlight anyway. But yeah, earthquakes, we've so far had just little ones out here since I've come. Nothing as bad as the last time I was here. So if we want to neutralize that green, we grab a little bit of our red. We bring that over. That'll take the take it more into the blue and mute it. And I think I want a little bit more because with fur. I made them, seriously. I made the whole Master Series paint line except for the most recent stuff. I am the one who created it, which means I created all the colors, I named them all, I did the formulas for every batch, and I mixed almost every batch by hand for almost 17 years. And then I handed it off when I moved out here. So now, somebody else does it. But the way that I always tried to select the names of paints is I wanted something that was fairly descriptive. Sharkbite is not one of my paints. I did not choose that name. Usually I tried to choose a name that either sounded right to me, like thematic, or actually straight up descriptive, or gave you a sense of what it was supposed to be used for. That changed a little bit as we got over like 500 colors. You run out of... But that was Ed. You know that story, don't you, Painting Tentacle? The Drown Nipple Pink story. You can blame Ed for that. That was Ed. That was Ed and me picking up the gauntlet and saying, challenge accepted. Yes. But yeah, as we went on, then I started getting more like just like fantasy descriptive with names like Cat's Eye Green, although it is actually a cat's eye color. But you know what I mean. Because I was just running out of names. Like Styx Purple was kind of like that moody death purple. That's why it has that name. That's why I find it a good color for evil vampires and necromancers and stuff. But yeah. So I got to name them all. And that was probably one of the most fun parts of my job, was making new colors. I miss it. Alright, so we have taken... That red really knocked almost all the... It's still cold gray, but it's not bluish. Up here I was using more of the Sharkbite, and you can see that in the teal highlights in the hair. This is going to give me more of a neutral gray for the black fur. I probably need to grab some black, actually, because I want the fur to be black. Oh, of course, Chronico, that's always what happens. I'm debating getting the Kiki a present for Christmas. I was looking at PetSmart when I was there picking up her kibble the other day, and I was like, it's hard to find toys for her because you can't get her anything she's going to destroy, but you also have to make it interactive enough that she wants to play with it. So she's actually a hard dog to buy for, because some of the really tough like tugs, like they just weren't squeakable enough. It has to be interactable. All right, there's some black. She's a weirdo dog. Because if it's not interactable, if it's not easy to interact with, she will lose interest in it. Just mixing up my black. Boop, boop, boop. Just want a little bit just to retouch up. Alrighty. Alrighty, good deal. Because I had a little bit of scrape off here off of this fur, so I want to touch it up a little bit. And then let's start highlighting. We just want a little bit, since we want this fur to be black. Yeah, I've seen one too, Kerniko. I have a picture of it. It was at a artist conference. That was what I think prompted Jean to make those I Survived Reaper Artist Conference shirts a long time ago. That was when we had our first litter of puppies, so I was like kind of like freaked out for the sake of don't you dare come down and get my puppies, Tornado, that kind of thing. So I'm just mostly focusing on the top here and leaving a lot of the underlying fur black. And I may need to do a black kind of wash over the top of this, black, like wash glaze. But yeah, not like I said, Tornado's too unpredictable for me. I'll take different disasters. So we got some definition there, but now we need to make sure that we still look black. I'm going to bring my dark gray in and do a little bit on the back, on the downside of this as well. Then I'm going to put black over the whole thing. I don't mind a little bit of a dark gray cast, but I do want it to look really dark for yeah. No thanks. I remember like just being awake in my bedroom as a kid, like with a forecast saying there might be tornadoes and just being scared. Black glaze leaves us with some texture, but still makes it look black. Yeah. Scary stuff. Alrighty. Let's get some of these boots and then we'll call it. Originally, I think I wanted to give these boots teal highlights, but I've rethought. Just wanted to have the fur be different from his hair in the end. So yeah, to reiterate, I will be streaming tomorrow. On my own channel on twitch.tv/paintingbig. We'll be working on something. I'll probably work on Anubis. That's Anubis and maybe Crystal Dragon. Otherwise, it's a weekend for writing and Christmas shopping and figuring out what I need to have on hand before David's parents land on us a week from today. Okay, sounds good, Quindy. Thanks for the heads up. A little bit of kind of salt and pepper, that gives it a good texture. Yeah, it's nice that we have more tools now to keep track of some of that nasty weather stuff. So that's nice. It gives it a nice little texture. You can see that the fur still looks dark, especially against the light skin of the leg. That's exactly what we want. That's good, Painting Tentacle. I can only handle so many messages before Kiki comes and climbs into my lap and says, hey, it's time to take me for a WALK. She's been sleeping. I've been hearing her dreaming while I've been on the stream with you guys. It's a little bit of higher highlight, and there we go. We have a nice black fur texture. Yeah, that's going to be a hard call now, Painting Tentacle, because with Ed gone, he was one of the main powers pushing that project. I don't know where that project is. They are really easy to mix just if you want to airbrush with them, though. There we go. Cool, Kariniko. I hope to see you there. Alrighty, I think that's... And now I've gone a little gray. See, when you put a little bit too much on, it goes gray very quickly. This is the thing with black. Gotta watch your ratio of light to dark. And putting that glaze over the top helps to drag everything down a step. So now if I glaze over what I just did, I'm back to still getting a little closer to black. It helps with it to have that light color next to it. That helps it to look correct. Alrighty, I think that's pretty good. That's a pretty good demo. We started with our, Reaper airbrushes really well here. Lovejoy and Michael Proctor and even Ed. Ed used to airbrush with our paint regularly. So there we go. So we got a fair amount done today, just refinement of stuff. We got our texture on our red leather straps, and we brought that purple up, dealt with the purple here as well. So now we're getting to the point where we're doing the fur, and then we're getting really close to complete on this guy, actually. I still need to do the big axe, obviously, and the little tiny axe. And gold NMM. Some of the gold NMM on the front. But otherwise, we're moving. We're moving right along. I'll line up these bottles again. Get them out of my face. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. On Monday, we are doing... Looks like we are going to be finishing up basing on Illustrally, where I did a bit of that milliput. I need to, I'll probably take actually my flexible modeling paste and do the rest here. Because we really just need a ground that we can put her up on a hill with some grass and leaves and stuff. We aren't doing anything complicated on this one. But yeah, so that's probably, it'll be pretty easy. We might even start a new model on Monday. Or we'll go over and we'll throw Karindra in and we'll work on her base with her little brazier. Oh, speaking of Kiki. Speaking of the Kiki. Hi. Hi, Kikers. Hi, do you want to say hi to the stream before we leave? Come here, Bubba. Come here, Bubba. Yay! Giant dog. Hi, giant dog. Hi, giant dog. Oh, who's a good girl? Who's a good girl? Yay. Yay. You thought it, you knew it was the stream end, and I'm getting a hug. I have a leany dog. So leany. So leany. Oh, the leaniest dog. So leany, yes. Yes, pretty girl. Yes, you are a pretty girl, aren't you? Yeah. Oh, but you have no ears. Oh, there they went. Oh, they almost came up. Where's those ears? There they are. Yeah, good ears. And the face lickings. Let the face lickings commence. Yes, yeah, you guys have a good weekend too, okay? All right, cool. Cool. Kiki says, is time, Bubba. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all on Monday and some of you tomorrow. All right, awesome. Bye-bye, and have a great one, everybody.